Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and welcome to part 3 of my networked DVR project for 2017. What I have been doing over probably the last 4 years or so now is reducing my television viewing costs substantially by using my own equipment to record TV as well as get broadcasts from my cable system out to all my televisions in the house. I save about $60 a month at least doing this, which is pretty substantial versus renting Comcast's equipment. That makes me, of course, a cord shaver and not necessarily a cord cutter, but I am saving a lot of money nonetheless. However, everything you're about to see in this video and the prior 2 portions that I posted up a few weeks ago is something you can also do with over-the-air broadcast. So if you're able to pick up a lot of things over the air, you can get rid of the cable subscription completely, and all of the equipment and software that we've been demonstrating in this series is going to work also for over-the-air broadcast. It's very flexible like that, which is why I like using the HDHomerun tuners that you're going to be hearing about during the course of this review. Now, one of the things that people were mentioning to me in the prior videos was that I had some pretty expensive stuff running everything, so the ROI might take a while to reach, and I definitely agree with that sentiment. So what I wanted to do in this video was show you how you can bring the cost down for your initial setup and entry into this process for about $400. And I've been looking at a lot of low-cost devices that can work as cable boxes on my network, and the best one I found is the one that I found a couple of years ago too, which is the Raspberry Pi. This is a $35 computer that is widely available, and it works exceptionally well, believe it or not, for what we're going to be doing in this project. So if you want to bring down costs dramatically, I've got some great ideas for you in this video, and I'm looking forward to sharing those with all of you. Now, I do want to mention, in the interest of full disclosure, that Silicon Dust, who makes the HDHomerun tuner, is an occasional sponsor here on the channel. However, they found me through the first video I did about their product years ago. In fact, the one I bought is still the one I am using here several years later. So I was a client of theirs before they became a client of mine. I just really like the product, and that is why I talk about it so much. But all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review. This is not a sponsored review, and no one is reviewing this content before it is posted. So let's jump into it. I'm first going, though, to give you an overview of how all of this works, because I did get a bunch of questions on my part 2 video, and I think it's important for us to revisit how all of these things work together and what kind of components you need. So let's do a quick PowerPoint here and run through how all of this stuff works. Again, it will work with over-the-air broadcast or cable TV broadcast, and if you really want to get crazy, you can do both at the same time too. So you've got plenty of options here for how all of these things might work together. Now, in my case, because I am a cord shaver, I have my cable jack hooked up to my HDHomerun Prime tuner, which is the one designed for cable systems. They have 3 tuners total in their product line at the time that I'm shooting this review. Each does different things, but the one on the far left there, the HDHomerun Prime, is the one designed for cable. So it takes a cable card that you have to get from your TV provider. You snap it into the back of it, you call them up to get it configured for their network, and in my case, I get a credit for using it. I get $2.50 back a month from Comcast because I'm not using their box anymore. I swapped out my cable box for a cable card, popped it in the back of that thing, and off I went. Now, you connect the other end of this to your Ethernet network. So what I would suggest is maybe putting it close to where your router is, so you've got everything centrally located. That's what I did. And then once it's plugged into your network, you can grab TV from any supported device in the house. Now, there's one gotcha on this, which is something called DRM. And some channels on my lineup are currently protected with DRM, specifically HBO. So right now, I cannot use HBO on this Roll Your Own DVR system because it is encrypted. Silicon Dust, the makers of all this stuff, are working on bringing DRM support to Windows 10 and to Android, but at the moment it is not yet working for DVR recordings. If you do, though, have an Xbox One or a Windows 10 computer, you can watch live DRM-protected content through those platforms, but not through the DVR. So it's a cable industry thing. They're working through it, but do make sure that your cable system is not encrypting the channels you want to watch before you take the plunge on this. In my case, HBO is really the only thing that I'm not getting, but I have the HBO Go app, so I'm able to work around around that issue, but just keep that in mind. Some cable companies are not friendly to this, and Silicon Dust is working on that at the moment. Now, the HDHomerun Prime supports 3 tuners at the same time, so that means it can record or watch 3 things simultaneously. So you could have, for example, one TV watching something live while 2 other shows get recorded. If you're finding you're hitting tuner limitations, you can add more tuners to the network, and the software will automatically make use of those. So if you're finding that your kids are watching too much TV and you're trying to record something and can't because the tuners are occupied, adding another tuner to the network will likely resolve some of those issues for you. But if you want to ditch cable completely and go over the air, you'll need one of these 2 boxes, the HDHomerun Connect or the HDHomerun Extend. And what you do with these is you plug in an antenna versus your cable signal, and it connects up to your network in the same way. The box will automatically go out and detect all of the available channels that it can pick up, and then those will be made available to your network. Now, the difference between these 2 is that one has an encoder built in, the Extend, which will make it work better over Wi-Fi networks. The signals that broadcasters use are an older MPEG 2 format still, and those can be very demanding on Wi-Fi connections. It's better with AC wireless, the new 5 gigahertz standard that a lot of newer stuff has, but if you've got little TV boxes all over the house or something and finding that you're not getting a reliable signal, the Extend will help with that because it's able to encode video to a smaller size. It compresses the video with H.264. The Extend costs $130, give or take, and the Connect costs $100. They both have 2 tuners in them each, but again, if you buy multiple versions, you can add more tuners to your network, and it works pretty much the same as the way the cable one works once you get them hooked up. Now, if you have no desire to record anything with a DVR, you are done here. You can buy this box once, pay no monthly fee, and be able to watch live television on any device that's compatible with it, and the compatibility keeps growing all the time. And there's different app developers that are supporting the HDHomerun platform. One of the things that developers like about it is that they don't lock anything down. So you're not just stuck with Silicon Dust software. If you want something with a different style channel guide, for example, you can choose to purchase that app from a developer that presents the content to you the way you want. So you do have a lot of options here with this hardware. They don't restrict the types of software that work with it, which is a great thing. In fact, if you don't want to use their DVR, you could use somebody else's DVR that's compatible with the HDHomerun platform. I think there's probably 2 or 3 now beyond the offering that Silicon Dust makes that's compatible with their hardware. And again, it can all work concurrently, provided you have enough tuners available. It's pretty flexible in how it works. Now, what I have on my network is a network-attached storage device that is running the Silicon Dust DVR software. They call it the recording engine. It runs on that network hard drive, and what that does is it kind of sits in the middle between the HDHomerun Prime and my devices. So it's recording everything that I want recorded. It's doing the playback of the recorded shows that I wish to watch. It shoots it over the network digitally, of course, but it is managing all of that. It also works as a time-shifting device. So if I want to pause live TV and rewind it, it's acting as the intermediary in that. Or, for example, if I am maybe watching something that is still being recorded, but I want to watch the beginning, again, the DVR recording engine on the NAS is acting as the intermediary. So it kind of sits in the middle and does all of those things for you, and I'm surprised how well it works even on low-cost hardware, which I will be detailing here in a second. Now, the heat that I got on the last video was the fact that my current setup is a little more on the pricey side of things. I kind of put together the Cadillac system here. So I have the HDHomerun Prime, which costs $135. I've got 3 NVIDIA Shield TVs on my 3 televisions that I'm doing this with. So those are about $200 a piece. So we're quickly escalating the cost here. The NAS device that I'm using is quite expensive because that one does a lot of fancy video transcoding for Plex, which we covered in the first video. So that is why we needed something more powerful. So that one's an $800 purchase. And then, of course, you've got the annual DVR license for the HDHomerun recording engine, which is $35 a year. Now, at $3 a month, I think it's probably the least expensive DVR on the market right now, and I think it's pretty reasonable given that you do have to pay somebody for all of that channel guide data. They have to pay people too, so that is why you're paying a little bit there. But $35 a year is a lot less expensive than many of the other stuff that's out there. But nonetheless, my setup right now is about $1,500, and I found it was going to take a while to make back that return on investment, especially considering my net savings is about $57 a month when factoring in the HDHomerun annual fee for the DVR system. So what I wanted to do was find a way to rebuild this system from scratch with the least expensive components possible. And I found a way to do it that's going to bring us in around $400 or $500. And you might be able to reduce this amount if you've already got stuff laying around the house that you can repurpose or use with this system. A lot of things you already have may already be compatible. So let's take a look at what I pieced together here. So I am considering this a over-the-air project, but if you wanted to go with the HDHomerun Prime, of course, you'd have to add another $35 or so to the first item on the list. I do recommend, though, if you are planning to do this with Wi-Fi, to get the HDHomerun Extend. Again, another $30 or so to get that version, which will work better with Wi-Fi networks. Now, instead of the expensive NVIDIA Shield boxes, I found the least expensive box that works the best, which is our favorite little mini computer, the Raspberry Pi. This is the Raspberry Pi 3. It sells for $35. You really can't beat that price, and it does a pretty nice job of tuning live TV and working with this DVR system. I'll show you how it works and how to set it up here in this video, but I'm continually impressed by the things you can do with this little box, and I'm sure if you are a techie like me, you've seen a lot of other different projects you can do with them also. I've got a little pile of these around the house because they're so fun to play with, so I'm using that. You do have to get some accessories for it, namely a case, which I found costs about $7 on the average. You also need to get an MPEG 2 license, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, especially if you're doing over-the-air broadcasts. You do have to get a mini SD card for each of these devices, along with a power adapter and power cord, so I'm considering about $20 for the cost of all of that. You don't need a very big card, so I think a 4 gig card should be enough to get this up and running. It's not going to be storing any video on here at all. It's going to be using the network exclusively, but you do need a card to boot it up with. So you'll have to get a few of those. We got the $35 HDHomerun DVR license, and I also have a single drive WD MyCloud on this list. And I was testing this setup with a single drive WD MyCloud for a while. It's not a very expensive device. You do have to jump through one hoop to get the recording engine installed on it. The HDHomerun DVR setup software that you run on Windows or Mac will automatically get it running on your little single drive MyCloud NAS. The only caveat is that if the drive shuts off or reboots, you have to reload the software on every time. If you go up to a slightly more expensive WD MyCloud Mirror, you can install the software and have it running as an internal app that will continually be operating even if the drive reboots. But again, if we're doing this on the cheap, that's the way to go. Now, if you've got an inexpensive computer or a computer you're not using anymore, you could just put that on the network and have it run 24/7 as the server and knock out the NAS component completely. This DVR recording engine is very lightweight software. It doesn't need all that much to run, considering it can run on a single drive WD MyCloud NAS, and it's definitely worth considering if you don't want to go through that complexity of having to continually reinstall the software on the cheap drive. But again, the MyCloud Mirror, which only costs a little more, I think it's in the $230, $50 range or something, should be able to work fine for you. Likewise, if you have an Xbox One on the network or another compatible TV box already, you don't even need the Raspberry Pi either. So again, I'm estimating starting from scratch with nothing and trying to get 3 televisions connected, so you can pick and choose which devices you want to use for this and possibly save on your ROI. So let's take a look now and see how we can get this software installed on the Raspberry Pi and get it connected to our HDHomerun DVR network. Now, to get all of this working, we're going to use an app called Kodi, which is a very popular media app that the HDHomerun devices work with. And there is a version of Kodi for the Raspberry Pi called LibreELEC. This software is completely free of charge. You download it. We're going to install it onto this SD card, and it will boot the Raspberry Pi up into Kodi every time it turns on. There's nothing to type or configure. It just boots right into Kodi, and the operating system here is optimized for it. And the nice thing is it's very easy to get working. We're just going to click on Downloads here. I'm running on a Mac right now, but this will be the same for Linux or Windows. I'll click the download for Mac OS. I'll wait for the app to download here. What this will do is it will automatically burn the image onto this SD card so we can boot everything up. So here is the SD card creator, and it's already got the configuration that I'm looking for. So you do want to make sure that it's selected as a Raspberry Pi 2 and 3. You do, though, have some additional options. You can even install this on the 0 and the 1 if you want to try a lower end version, but I would say stick to the 2 or the 3. It will automatically pick up the installation that it needs. You're going to click on Download. And what this will do now is go out to their servers and download the file for the Raspberry Pi that will be running it. So I'll click on my downloads folder here to tell it where I want that file stored. And now we'll just let it download here. And when it's done, we'll burn that image and we'll take it from there. Okay, the download is complete. The file is now on my computer's hard drive, but we got to get it over to this card so we can boot up the Raspberry Pi. So now we've done all that. You can see here it's asking me to select my USB stick or SD card. You do need to make sure you select the right card. So my advice would be unplug anything you don't want accidentally erased here, just to be careful. So we've got my 16 gig card here selected. I'm going to click on write. And what it's going to do is give me a warning here to remind me to make sure I'm on the right device here. And now it's going to write that image to the card. So I'm going to let this thing finish writing itself out. We'll then put it inside our Raspberry Pi and boot it up and get the rest of the process going. So stay tuned and hang on. Okay, so we're all set. I've got the card burned with the Kodi image. I'm going to pop that into the bottom of the Raspberry Pi here. And then I'm going to attach power to it. These little Raspberry Pis do not consume all that much power. They're just basically running over USB voltage here. It's pretty low impact. And you'll notice that I do have my Raspberry Pi connected via Ethernet. That's one of the things that I really like about these low-cost computers, is that they do have an Ethernet jack built in. And that is going to give you the best possible performance, especially for over-the-air broadcasts that are coming in with that older MPEG 2 format. It really likes being on a wired network versus a wireless one. There are ways that this will work with wireless just fine, but typically the Wi-Fi that I found on these little Raspberry Pis doesn't have the latest and greatest AC technology. So my recommendation really, as best you can, try to get a wired network. I do not like power line extenders. They don't seem to work very well. You'll find those on many online stores, but I do like the Mocha adapters that I've covered here on the channel in the past. And what those will do is work over your cable TV wiring and allow you to basically convert cable TV to Ethernet, and it works great. In fact, it even works if you have existing cable television on your network. It's very reliable, rock solid, and if you really want to get wired connections out to all of your different devices near your televisions without rewiring the house, I would say that that is probably the best way to go. It is really seamless how well Mocha works for extending your network. So now we've got this thing booted up, and it's already showing us the welcome screen here. So I'm just going to step through everything really quick here to get up and running, and we don't need to worry about too many of these things. I do have it on Ethernet, as you saw, so we don't need to worry about the wireless connections, but you can configure that over there. I'm going to leave these things as is and then just go out to the main menu here. Now, in order to get this to work, we do need to install the HDHomerun Add-On. It is free. It will work if you're just doing the live TV thing without a DVR subscription, but if you do have the DVR software installed, it will automatically find the DVR on your network and work with that as well. Now, in order to get to that, we have to go over here to Add-ons, and I'll select that. By the way, I'm using a wireless keyboard and mouse right now, but there is a app for Kodi that you can install on your phone, whether it's Android or iOS, and use it as a remote control. So there's ways to control this without having to go and get additional peripherals, but for me, it's just easier to use this at the moment. So we're going to go over here to Video Add-ons. I'll go to the Enter Add-on Browser option. And what we're going to do is just kind of scroll down the list until we get to the H's. So I'm just going to page down here until we get to H, and then we should see here HDHomerun on the list. I'm going to select that. We'll just go ahead and click on Install here, and it'll just take a second for it to download. What I found with this is everything that I use with the HDHomerun is pretty low impact here. Now it is installed. You can see that message just came up on there, and if I back out of here and go to my video add-ons folder here, you'll see now that we have the HDHomerun up and running. And if I click on that, it's going to find my devices automatically, fetch the TV guide. It'll give me some instructions as to how to use it here. And here we go. I've got my cable system going. I can start browsing through the channels with their slice guide here, just like you could on one of their regular apps. So let's take a look now and see how it works. Okay, so we are up and running now. Everything seems to be working fine. I've got my local ABC affiliate up on the air. I can tap right here on the phone remote to browse through the slice here and find a different channel to watch. So if I want to switch over to PBS here, for example, I can just tap on that icon and it will then start tuning that. It does work very quickly here, surprisingly so, given what the cost of the hardware is. And what's really interesting is that it's been working okay with MPEG 2 broadcasts like the one that we have up on screen right now. And it's doing better than the prior editions did. I do want to show you the MPEG 2 license in a little bit in case you do run into some issues here. But so far, it's been working fine with both MPEG 2 and MPEG 4 broadcasts that come over my cable system here. Now, if I wanted to record something that might be on later tonight, for example, if I want to go maybe to the news hour, I can just select that from the slice guide here. It will then pull up the DVR interface, and I can choose to record all of these episodes or maybe just record this upcoming one. So I can click on here and go over to record, and that will set it to record in my DVR. And this will now have a rule that will record that show on the DVR recording engine, and any other device on the network will be able to see that I set that recording as well as be able to play it back when it's done. So this is just the same computer or NAS device I'm working off here as I would on anything else around the house here. And you also have access to recordings on the device too. So if I go back to our phone remote here, if I hit the back button, it'll pull up the recording interface here. So if I wanted to go down and watch one of the things that I've recorded prior, I can go to maybe the Deadliest Catch here and click on the August 1st episode and just start watching that, and it will now stream this off of my recording from the NAS device here, and it comes over fairly quickly. So it is working, and I can do all my full controls. I can fast forward, rewind, and do all the things you would normally be able to do with a recording, yet we're doing it on our Raspberry Pi here. That's pretty flexible. I can hit that back button again to go back a level. I can go over here to the Discover tab, which is a way of finding what is currently on air or being able to search for different things. I covered this interface in my review or overview of the app that we looked at in part 2, so you can get more information about that. I can also scroll over to the task screen here and get access to all the tasks that are currently scheduled on my DVR, and everything I do on here, of course, will impact the rest of the network, so you have full access to everything that's going on there. If I hit the back button again, I can go back to the Live.TV interface, and then I can also, when I go back over there, hit the back button again and be able to do a search. So if I want to look for something specifically, I can just click on search, and a keyboard will pop up here on my phone, and I can start typing in the things that I am looking for. So lots of good stuff on here that I think are pretty neat to have on a very inexpensive device. Even if you have an NVIDIA Shield TV as your desired go-to device on your main TV, you can get these little boxes for little money on all your other televisions and have a pretty functional experience here. You just have to show people where to go to get it activated. You just have to go down to the add-ons menu and click on HDHomerun. Now, you saw during the demo how the MPEG 2 broadcast we were watching looked just fine on here, surprisingly so. But if you are running into trouble, there is a way to enable a hardware MPEG 2 decoder on the Raspberry Pi. This will certainly be an issue if you're running with one of the older Raspberry Pi 2s. And on the Raspberry Pi store, they have one, by the way, there is a license key that you can get for just over £2. It's going to be about $3 or $4 in the US here. And what this will do is unlock the secret hardware decoder that's built into this thing. So if you are having some performance issues, especially with over-the-air broadcasts, buying that license will get you going. You got to buy a separate license for every Raspberry Pi that you own, and they're tied to the serial number on the device. So let me show you how you can easily get the serial number out of this thing without having to go into some crazy command line to find it. So what we're going to do here is go up to the gear icon, and we're going to go over to the system information screen here. And what you're going to see here is a whole bunch of information about our current configuration and IP address and the free memory we have. But I'm going to scroll down over here to hardware. And what you want to look for is the number next to the words serial. You want to either take a picture or write that number down, because you're going to have to give this to the folks at Raspberry Pi on their web store here to buy that license. You have to type your serial number here and add it to cart. And what they're going to do is email you probably a day or two later a code that you're going to put into a text file, which I'll show you in a second, to unlock that hardware decoder. So let me show you how to do that right now. Okay, so the Raspberry Pi is shut down. We've got the card inserted into my Mac here, and what you want to look for is a file called config.txt. So you can edit this in Windows on Notepad or on the Mac here with their text editing application. And what it's going to do is pull up this configuration file. And when you get your email back from the Raspberry Pi people, they're going to give you a serial number here to put in. This will not work for you because it's tied to my Raspberry Pi's own unique serial number. And what you want to do is scroll through here and look for this decode MPEG 2 line of this text file. We're going to remove the little pound sign there. And what we're going to do is actually just grab this section of the text here and bring it over here. I'm going to delete all the zeros and replace it with that. And now I'm going to go up here and click File and Save, and then eject the card and reboot our Raspberry Pi. And that is it. You'll have an MPEG 2 hardware decoder ready to go. So let me get this thing booted back up. So we are booted back up now. I did want to show you one additional add-on that I thought might be of interest for all of you if you are into Plex like I am. I use a Plex server here in the house for my personal media, and one of the nice things about the Kodi installation here is that there is also a Plex add-on. You can run Plex inside of Kodi. I think we covered that a few months ago on the channel. Let me just show you how it works on here. So we're going to go back to the add-on screen here. We do have to go at this a different way than we did before. So I'm going to go over to Install from Repository, and we'll go over here to the Kodi add-on repository, and we'll go down to video add-ons again. And down the list, if we scroll all the way down to the P's, we're going to see that there is a Plex add-on here available, an official Plex one. So I'll click on that and click Install, and I'll show you how this works now. It seems to work just as well as it does on any other platform, yet it's integrated into this Kodi installation. So let me get logged in, and I'll show you some of the things you can do with it. So here is Plex running on top of Kodi on my Raspberry Pi, and I do want to mention, in the interest of full disclosure, that Plex is a sponsor here on the channel, but they're not sponsoring this video. I covered in section 2 of this series about how I'm using these two services together, the HDHomerun stuff along with the Plex stuff, and you can get access to all your Plex stuff here. What's cool about this is that you can also connect to servers outside of your home, which is one of the strengths of Plex. So you're able to, for example, connect to a friend's server somewhere and stream media to your Raspberry Pi just like you would on any other Plex client, which I thought was pretty useful on such an inexpensive little device. I can also go on here and play back some of my movies. So I've got The Empire Strikes Back here, for example, and I can just go ahead and play that over my network via my Plex server. I do get a little warning up here when I start playing it back that it says the read rate is too slow or too low for continuous playback, but I'm not seeing any drop frames or anything else like that. But I think if you are playing back media locally on your network, Kodi is probably the better choice because you could just point it at wherever those movies are stored and play it back natively through Kodi without the add-on. But there might be reasons why, for organizational purposes, that you will want to use the Plex option, and you have it here with this Raspberry Pi. And then when you're done, you can just go ahead and back out of the Plex add-on. You're brought right back into your Kodi screen. You can boot up your DVR or go over to media that you've pointed directly at Kodi. You can spend months or years playing with this and tweaking it to your heart's content, but it works great even with these two little add-ons right out of the box for free, which I thought really makes it worthwhile here, and maybe worth probably a small investment of your time to get everything set up and running initially. So if you're looking to do things on the cheap, that's how I would do it. I think we knocked about $1,000 or so off the initial entry point here. And if you have things like an Xbox One or another compatible device that can work with the HDHomerun software or Kodi, then you can knock that off your price list because you can just use what you already have to get it done. I was really hoping that the Amazon Fire TV stick would be a good option here because it does run Kodi. It also runs the HDHomerun app natively, but it doesn't do well with interlaced broadcasts that come over the air and through your cable system, unfortunately. So it kind of knocked it out of contention. It did work actually quite well, even over Wi-Fi, but the image really looks terrible because it doesn't play back the interlaced content properly. It doesn't de-interlace it like we're doing here with the Raspberry Pi to make it look nice on a current TV. So that one is unfortunately not something I would recommend at the moment. It's a shame because it's only $40 and it costs just about the same as what this costs, but you get Netflix and a bunch of other apps with it also. But we'll keep on the lookout for other low-cost options. I'd love to hear some of your suggestions down below of things that I should look at to try out. There are a bunch of these cheap Android boxes on Amazon that you could look at, but they're not always that reliable, and they're not from name brands that I know. And I like this option here. There's no other thing running on here but Kodi. It just boots right up, pretty simple to operate, and you can get a bunch of these deployed, again, very, very cheaply. So that's going to do it for part 3 of this who knows how many part series I'll be doing on this project. The good news is that I think I'm about 3 weeks into this, if not a month into it now, and it's been working just fine. I haven't had any issues whatsoever. My wife is okay with it, which is the most important thing in this project to keep under consideration. And I think I'm at the point now where I can completely retire the Windows Media Server and have this running as my primary DVR capture engine. I'll keep you posted as to when I actually pull the plug, but I think we're there because I haven't really had any reason to switch back to my old DVR. I'm just going to pull some recordings off of it, but I think other than that, we are going to cut the cord on this cord shaving project and transition over to this new setup. Please do keep your questions and comments coming, though, because that is helping guide me in not only the things that I do here in my house, but coming up with future content ideas. So definitely leave those comments down below, and I'll see you next time. This is Lon.TV, and thanks for watching. This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, including gold level supporter Kodi Falk. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.